In this presentation, you will learn about feminism and anthropology. Feminist anthropology brings different field approaches to anthropology: archaeological, biological, cultural, linguistic. It aims to reduce male bias in research findings, anthropological hiring practices, and the scholarly production of knowledge. The anthropology format of comparative studies, holistic perspective has been used by several disciplines too. Feminists in the West were questioning the assumptions on which the patriarchal nuclear family was based and looked into anthropology for examples of alternative arrangements from contemporary non-Western societies. Households, domestic arrangements, marriage, procreation, childbirth, and other aspects of what had previously been defined as kinship were central to the study of gender. As a result, one issue that soon emerged was how kinship and gender could be considered separate analytic domains. How did they articulate with each other? Did kinship define gender relations? Did gender exist before kinship? Or were these domains mutually constituted? The anthropological study of gender very quickly placed in question the analytic viability of kinship as a field of study and its centrality within the discipline. Anthropology seemed uniquely well placed to examine cross-cultural variation in gender ascriptions. Feminists also argued that institutions such as the family and the household, relations between men and women, and the meaning of being a man or a woman were understood quite differently in different cultures. Rather than accept Western definitions of such concepts, anthropologists and sociologists began to subject them to analytical scrutiny. How did these institutions appear to be natural and given when culturally viable? Of particular interest were how political hierarchies emerged from these seemingly natural categories or distinctions. What kinds of cultural processes were involved in producing such hierarchies, and how had they achieved the illusory appearance of being natural or given? From the 1960s onward, the feminist movement and scholarship inspired important work in kinship studies. This resulted first in several important works that led to the documentation of women's lives previously omitted from ethnographic accounts. Women's involvement in household and domestic arrangements, trade, exchange, labor, religion, and economic life were studied. Feminist writings have been in several disciplines. Several studies point out that the ratio of female scholars and scientists working in science is very less than of men even today. There are important works on literature like Women Writing in India, which uses the anthropological methods of stories, narratives, and context and questions the social structure. Every field has its share of documenting and writing about feminism. However, anthropology has its place as it documents the issue holistically. It gets into the roots of the problem by studying the tribal societies, remote areas, villages, by staying over a long period. Feminist sociology and anthropology. Sociology as an independent discipline has its roots in the background of industrial development. So the dominant methods in sociology have been positivistic tradition like that of survey tool, etc. On the other hand, anthropology developed at the background of understanding culture. The field of study has been that of simple societies. With time, these methods have been adopted. Though developed in industrial setup, sociology has adopted the anthropologist's methodology of ethnography, narrative, folklore, oral history. In other words, both of these disciplines have collaborated with their exchange of methods and tools often. Contribution by feminists and anthropologists. Feminist anthropologists have played in worldwide campaigns against human rights abuses, domestic violence, and environmental degradation. It also celebrates their work closer to home, helping to explore the developed world's preconceptions about sex, gender, and sexuality. They have also brought insider perspectives on the fields they study. Feminist anthropology has also shaped the emergence of fields like women's studies, Black and Latina studies, LGBTQ studies, masculinity studies, affective theories, and science and technology studies. In other words, feminist anthropologists' writings have led to the emergence of several other disciplines. Challenges to feminist movements. Men's rights activists have emerged in India since the 1990s through political outreach via social media, legislative lobbying, and street action. They represent various ethnic and religious groups, including several prominent women leaders, and reflect some diversity of class positions. Their common target is the cynical misuse of civil and criminal laws relating to marriage and domestic violence, particularly the simultaneous deployment of multiple laws. MRA discourses are a crucial site for tracing contestations of gender and the formation of subjectivities. Addressing the cultural debate. Walter argues that feminist anthropology as a field of study should pose questions about how differential power constitutes gender differences. It should also address these questions and calls for an approach to the study of gender and power. In addition, one should also look into the relationship between structure and agency. Such an approach is the one that analyzes the practice of gender over time from intersubjective political perspectives. The author also argues that feminist anthropology is a justice claim which demands an ethic of engagement. Feminist anthropologists contribute to the large debates over the concept of culture and the epistemological problem of representation within anthropology. It discusses the current debates within cultural studies over the politics of culture. Thank you for watching the presentation. Do like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments about this presentation or any other topics you would like to learn more about.